Hello chess fans and welcome to Chess Vibe, and today's video is going to be simply phenomenal because I'm going to discuss 18 types of chess traps. Yes, you heard it right, 18. And yeah, 18 is just a too large amount of numbers according to chess traps because I think everyone should know the chess traps because you can just simply easily trap your opponent if you know the traps. So today's video is all about just chess traps. The video is going to be short and you're going to learn all the 18 traps. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Chess Vibes. So the first trap. So the first trap is the fishing pole trap. So white starts the game with 1 e4, black replies with e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop to b5. So we have the simple royal phase opening, knight f6, and white castle. And after castle, I think this position is just very common in the chess. Yeah, because mostly the 90% of the players play this opening. And yeah, just they came into this setup. After castle, now perhaps all those who doesn't know the traps simply continue the game with bishop c5 and castle. But I recommend for black to play in the position knight to g4. And the idea of knight g4 here is perhaps you are now hitting the pawn on h2 as well as putting some pressure on the pawn on f2, and perhaps your idea can be to play bishop c5 putting more pressure. Sorry, wrong arrow. Yep. So after knight to g4, the most common move for white in the position is to play h3, and after playing h3, white is hitting the knight, and also in the future there would be no back rank mate because the king is having the h2 square. So it's a very fine move. And after h3, now comes the most powerful move for black, which is h5. All those who don't know the trap will just simply came back with the knight, but just play h5 in the game. And after h5, black is saying, okay, you just go for the capturing the knight, and all those who don't know the trap definitely will go for the capture of the knight after playing h into g4. And now congratulations to black, because now the trap has been successfully set. Because after h into g4, you are going to simply capture the pawn on g4, and now you are hitting the knight on f3. So white will just simply come back with the knight by playing knight e1. After knight e1, now the great move, queen to h4. Idea is very simple. You are simply threatening queen h1 mate or even queen h2 mate. So white will try to avoid it by playing f3, which is the fourth move, or will white get simply checkmated. After f3, you won't give a check by playing queen h2 or queen h1 check, but you will simply play g3. Yep, you have just simply blocked the square for the king to run away, and now this checkmate is just unstoppable. It doesn't matter what white will play. Simply play queen h1 and it's game over. So this is the first chess trap, the amazing chess trap. So now let's move to the second chess trap, which is the Lasker trap. So the Lasker trap starts with 1 d4. So after 1 d4, black replies with d5. We have c4, and now we have the e5. After e5, white is having many options here. He can capture the pawn on d5, he can capture the pawn on e5. So the most common reply in the position is to capture the e pawn. Definitely. Because if black tries to capture the pawn, you capture the queen, and king have to capture, and black position is already bad. So after d to e5, now black is going to play a very powerful move, which is d4. Black is going to push the pawn to d4. And here the best moves are, there are two moves, playing knight f3 and a3. But all those who doesn't know the position, they will try to play e3 in the position, because e3 is the most natural move in the position who doesn't know the trap. Because after e3, your point here is, if black tries to capture the pawn, you will simply capture the queen, and black king will just lost his castle ideas, and then white is simply going to capture the pawn, and white is just a pawn up. Very simple. But yep, even if you try to play knight f3, black can play knight c6 and avoid it. Just protect the pawn. So e3 looks the most natural move, but after e3, congratulations, the trap has been set. because now comes a very powerful move, which is bishop to b4 check. And now definitely you cannot put the knight on c3 because pawn will simply capture it. So white is having two options, to put the knight or put the bishop on between to d2. If you try to put the bishop on d2, which looks the most natural option, definitely you are hitting the bishop. After bishop to d2, now comes the most amazing move in the position, which is black is simply going to capture the pawn on e3. And after d to e3, definitely bishop cannot capture the pawn because the bishop is pinned. So, and white will think that, okay, capturing the pawn with the pawn doesn't look very nice because yeah, definitely your pawn structure is already bad. And queen h4 is just a big trouble for the white. So definitely, at the place of capturing the pawn, white will go for capturing the bishop. Yeah, just a free piece. And white would be thinking, okay, after queen trade, I can play knight h3 and okay, I'm just completely winning. But congratulations, black is not going to trade the queen, but comes a powerful move, e into f2. Boom. After into f2, there is a check and the knight is also attacked. So if you try to capture the pawn, then black will simply capture the queen. And even if you try to play king e2, protecting the queen, then I'm going to play, first I'm going to capture the knight and make a knight and give a check. If you try to play king e1 in the position, I'm going to play queen h4 check and just game over. If you try to play g3, avoid the check, I'm going to play queen e4 check and the rook is also dead. So it's completely game over. That is why you cannot play king e1. So you have to capture the knight. And after capturing the knight, I'm going to play simply bishop g4 check. No piece can come between on f3 and you have to move the king. And after moving the queen, just simply boom, the queen is dead on d1 and it's game over for white. So this is the second trap known as the Lasker trap. So now let's move to the third trap known as Budapest trap. So Budapest trap also starts with 1d4. After 1d4, we have knight to f6. We have knight d2, e5, and white simply captures the pawn. Black plays knight to g4. Idea is very simple. Black is re-attacking the pawn on e5. Now white plays h3, the most natural move, right? You are hitting the knight. But yeah, this is what white actually wants. Black actually wants. After playing h3, feel free to pause the video and tell me what would you play according to black in the position. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think. So, okay. So all those who have thought, okay, just simply capture the pawn. Not the best move. This is not a trap means. And now comes a very powerful move. All those who have found knight to e3. Congratulations. The most powerful move. The queen is trapped on d1. So definitely white have to capture the knight. And after capturing the knight, black is going to just sweeps up with the queen, giving a check. White is forced to push the pawn, and after queen into g3, it's a checkmate. Game over for white. So this is the third trap known as the Budapest trap. So now let's move to the fourth trap, also known as the Monticelli trap. So white starts with 1d4. You have knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3. And now we have bishop to b5, bishop to b4 check. So we have the Boko Indian defense. We have bishop d2. Black bishop captures the bishop. Queen into d2. We have b6 by black. g3. Bishop g7. Bishop b7. We have bishop g2. Castle by black. Knight c3. Knight to e4. Simply attacking the queen as well as the knight. So white plays queen to c2. We have a knight trade. And after capturing the knight, knight to c3. There comes the real deal for white. White is going to just completely complicate the position by playing knight to g5. Yeah, just unexpected move by white. Yeah, the idea is very simple. Here, white is threatening a checkmate on h7. Black's knight is hanging on c3 as well as the bishop is hanging on b7. So many things are happening. And even the knight on g5 is hanging by the queen. So after knight g5, the best idea for black is to play queen into g5. Actually, the best idea is to play knight to e4 in the position, but definitely it's very hard to find. The most natural move looks like to simply capture the knight with the queen. After queen into g5, white is going to simply capture the bishop on b7, bishop on b7, and now white bishop is even attacking the rook on a8. So after bishop into b7, it's completely winning for white actually, because yep, even the rook is attacked, even the knight is attacked. So what are you even going to do? If you try to capture the pawn, I'm going to simply capture the knight, queen. I'm going to simply capture the knight with the queen, and even the rook is hanging. So it's completely winning for white. So I think you will be able to win the game. So this is the fourth trap, also known as the Monticelli trap. So now let's move to the fifth trap, known as the Kieninger trap. Yep. So white starts with 1d4. We have knight f6. We have c4, e5, d into e5. So this is also known as the Budapest Gambit. So after knight g4, black is attacking the pawn. So white defends it by playing bishop to f4. We have knight to c6, double attacking the pawn on e5. So white defends it by playing knight f3 check, knight f3. And now we have bishop to b4 check. After bishop b4 check, white is having two options to play knight c3 or knight d2. White plays knight to d2 because if white tries to play knight c3, black can capture the knight, and after bc3 followed by queen e7, your pawn is already dead on e5, as well as the pawn on c4 and c3 is just a very bad pawn chain. Definitely, white will not play knight c3 and he will play knight to d2 because it's the best move. After knight d2, black is going to play queen e7. White plays a3, just simply attacking the bishop on b4. And after a3, this is what black wants. Now black is simply going to capture the pawn on e5 with the knight. And now white is thinking, wow, a free piece on b4. So let's capture it. Yep, because it's just a free piece. Will you not capture the free piece? Definitely you will. So white will simply capture the bishop on b4. Congratulations. Feel free to pause the video and try to find mate in one idea for black. I think you have thought it. The idea is to play knight d3 and it's game over. It's a checkmate. The pawn cannot capture the knight because it would be check, and the king is having no square and the knight is attacking the king, and it's game over for white. So this is the, I don't know, it's the fifth trap, perhaps the Kieninger trap. So now let's move to the sixth trap, known as the Blackburne-Shilling trap. So white starts with 1e4. We have e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and we have knight to d4. Yep. After knight d4, white is having option. He can capture the knight as well as the pawn. The most natural move looks to capture the pawn on e5 because it's a free pawn, as well as now white is even attacking the pawn on f7. But this is what black wants. Now black is going to play a very nice move, which is queen g5. After queen g5, black is even attacking the knight as well as the pawn on g2. So white will try to simply capture the pawn on f7, simply attack the queen as well as the rook. Congratulations, your opponent have been successfully trapped in your game, because after knight into f7, which was a blunder move, now it's going to be game over for white, because now comes a very powerful move, queen into g2, simply capturing the pawn, and now you are hitting the rook on h1. So white definitely will try to defend the rook, because if white tries to capture the rook on h8, then simply queen into h1 and bishop is forced to come back on f1. But after queen into e4 check, the bishop have to still come in between, and after here black can play d5 followed by bishop, and it's completely game over for white. So that's why white will not try to capture the rook, and he will simply defend the rook by playing rook f1. Now black is simply going to capture the pawn on e4 with the queen, and here comes bishop e2. Yeah, because it's the fourth move. You will not try to put the queen because black will simply capture the queen. So after bishop e2, feel free to pause the video and try to find the mate in one idea for black. I think you have already found it, which is knight to f3 checkmate. Congratulations, it's a checkmate. Your opponent has been trapped. So this is the 6th trap, also known as the Blackburne-Shilling trap. So let's move to the 7th trap, also known as the elephant trap. So yeah, the game starts with d4, and after d4 we have d5 by black, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, knight d7. We have pawn captures, and we have knight into d5. Definitely a very nice move, because actually, yeah, after knight to d7, what white is thinking here, can't I just simply capture the pawn on d5? Because if black tries to capture the knight, the queen is simply hanging on d8. Yeah, so this is what white is thinking. Now I'll just tell you what black is thinking. So white simply captures the knight, and now congratulations, your opponent have been successfully trapped in your trap, because now you are simply going to capture the knight on d5. So this is what white thought, he will simply capture the queen. But accidentally black have thought one move ahead from white, which is now bishop to b4 check. Boom. And yeah, it's a check. The king is having no squares to go, everything is covered. So white is unfortunately forced to put the queen on between. And after putting the queen on between, we have simply king into d8, or even you can simply capture the queen on d2 with a check. And after king into d2, king into d8, just count the material, you are simply a piece up and you're going to win the game. So this is the 7th trap, also known as the elephant trap. So now let's move to the 8th trap, also known as the Rubinstein trap. So white starts with the d4, we have d5, knight f3, knight f6, and we have c4, e6, bishop g5, knight bd7, we have e3, bishop e7, knight to c3, castle by black, rook c1, rook to e8, we have queen to c2. So this is the queen's gambit declined variation. Yeah, because many d4 players who are watching the video will definitely know many of the players play the opening. Yeah, this is very common opening. After queen c2, we have a6 by black. So idea of black is very simple. He wants to capture at some point on c4. He wants to play b5 followed by bishop b7. After a6, white will simply capture the pawn on d5 now. And after capturing the pawn, black will capture with the pawn. Very natural. And after capturing the pawn on d5, what white is going to do here is he's going to play with bishop to d3. We have c6 by black. Yeah, because now the pawn structure is very nice and solid for black. So white is going to play castle by white. We have knight e4, and now we have bishop to f4. Not trading the bishop and going simply back with bishop f4. And after bishop f4, black plays f5. Yeah, the most natural move, and many players play this f5 move. Yeah, because after f5, if white tries to capture the knight, after fe4, black is having a very strong chain. Black is actually completely attacking to white king, and it's already lost for white. But unfortunately, after f5, congratulations for white, because now your opponent have been successfully trapped in your game. Because after f5, there comes a very powerful move, which is knight into d5. Congratulations if you found it. After knight into d5, the idea is very simple. If black tries to capture the knight, you are going to play bishop c7, and unfortunately the queen is trapped on d8. Okay. So after knight into d5, what will black even try to play? It's completely lost actually. Even if you try to move the queen to somewhere like queen f5, white is simply going to play knight c7, and both the rooks are attacked, and it's completely game over for black. So this is the 8th trap known as the Rubinstein trap. So now let's move to the 9th trap, also known as the Mortimer trap. White starts with 1e4, and after 1e4, black replies with e5. We have knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, knight f6, d3, knight e7. That's right, 97. Very unusual move, but this is the move. After 97, what black is basically doing here is, after 97, black is actually offering white to capture the pawn on e5. So white simply captures it. And after capturing the pawn, black is going to play c6. And after c6, here black is simply attacking the bishop. And for those players who are extra smart, they try to play something like knight c4, trying to just trying to just trying to trap your opponent. And the idea is very simple. After knight c4, black cannot capture the bishop because knight d6 is a checkmate. But actually, black is actually a bit extra smart. He have already saw the move and he's ready to play the move knight to g6. After knight g6, the bishop knight d6 is not going to work because the bishop is simply covering the square. So after knight g6, the bishop have to move because the bishop is still attacked. So white is forced to play bishop g4, bishop a4. And after b5, congratulations, there is a fork. Both the pieces are attacked and it's completely game over for white. White is going to lose a piece and you're going to win the game. So this is the 9th trap, perhaps, if I'm not wrong, also known as the Mortimer trap. So now let's move to the 10th trap, also known as the Noah-Ark trap. Noah-Ark trap. So white starts with 1 e4, black replies with e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, d6, and we have d4. Just simply going for opening the center. Black tries to play b5. We have bishop b3. And now we have e into d4, simply capturing the pawn. After e into d4, white simply captures the pawn back with a knight. And after knight into d4, congratulations, your opponent has been trapped in the game. After knight into d4, black is going to capture the knight into d4, and black is going to play c5. Simply attack the queen. So obviously white have to move the queen. White tries to play queen d5, trying to be extra smart. Now because the queen is now attacking the rook, as well as threatening a checkmate on f7, double attack. So black is going to play an extra smart move as well by playing bishop e6, defending the rook with the queen and also attacking the queen. So black gives queen c6 check. We have bishop d7, queen d5 back because now still there is a checkmate on f7. And now comes c4. The bishop is trapped on b3, there is no way to go. And it's completely losing for white because white is just going to lose a piece. Let's take after castle. Black is going to capture the pawn, capture the piece, and black is winning. So this is the 10th trap, also known as the Noah-Ark trap. So now let's move to the 11th trap, also known as the Tarrasch trap. So white starts with 1 e4. We have e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6. Castle by white, and now black captures the pawn on e4. Yep, because the pawn was also free. So after knight into e4, white plays g4, trying to open up the position. And after d4, already the game has become a little bit complicated. So first black tries to play b5. Simply hit the bishop on a4. So white comes back with the bishop by playing bishop b3. And now we have d5 by black. Yep, just having a nice center as well. Very nice. So after d5, white is going to capture the pawn on e5. We have bishop e6. We have c3. Bishop e7. Rook to e1 by white. Castle by black. Knight to d4. And now idea is very simple. Now the knight is attacking the knight on c6. So black has to play queen d7, protecting the knight. The most common idea. And after queen d7, congratulations, the opponent has been successfully trapped in your idea because you are going to play knight into e6. After knight into e6, the idea is very simple. There are two options for black to capture the knight. If black tries to capture the knight with the queen, rook into e4 is just winning on the spot. You cannot capture the rook because the queen is angry. And if you doesn't capture the rook, I'm just a piece plus. So if you try to capture the knight with the pawn, I'm still going to capture the knight. You still can't capture because the queen is hanging on d7. A very nice idea. So many of you were thinking that why would black play queen d7? because there are many players who just don't like to capture, because if black tries to capture the knight here, after c into d4, white is already having much more space on the center, which gives an advantage to white. That's why black played queen d7, so that the pawn on e5 remains weak. But unfortunately, black simply just lost a piece and it's winning for white. So this was the 11th trap known as the Tarrasch trap. So now let's move to the 12th trap, also known as the Siberian trap. So white starts with 1 e4, we have c5, d4, c into d4, c3, white captures another pawn, we have knight into c3, knight c6, knight f3, e6, bishop to c4, queen c7. So the basic setup for all the Sicilian players which they like to play. So all the Sicilian players who are watching the video will definitely know that this is a very common position for Sicilian players. After queen c7, white plays castle. We have knight f6, queen e2, knight g4. And the idea is very simple. What the idea of black here is, your black is threatening a dangerous pressure on h2 pawn. And the idea of black here is very simple. He's putting the pressure on the pawn on h2. But for now, white is defending the pawn with the knight. But still, white tries to play h3, the most common move in the position. Because after playing h3, white is simply attacking the knight on g4. Now, congratulations, the opponent have been trapped in your idea, because now comes a fantastic move, knight to d4. After knight d4, black is attacking the queen as well as the knight. So you cannot capture the knight on g4 because the queen is hanging. So what will you play? Obviously you will try to move the queen. So let's take queen d1. But now comes a mate into idea, which is first black is going to play knight into f3 check. So if white tries to capture it, congratulations, queen h2 is a checkmate. And if white doesn't capture it by playing simply queen h1, still queen h2 is a checkmate. So this was the 12th trap, also known as the Siberian trap. So now let's move to the 13th trap, also known as the fishing pole Spanish variation trap. Yep. White starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop captures the knight on c6, dc6, castle, bishop to g4, h3, and now we have still h5. Just remember the first trap, what we have did. After h5, white captures the bishop, h into g4, knight into e5, queen h4. Simple. It's just simply checkmate on h1. f3. Try to run away after queen h1 check by picking f2. We have g3 and it's completely over. Queen h1 checkmate. Incoming. So let's take any move. Knight g4. Just covering the square on h2. But still, queen h1 is a checkmate. Game over. So this was the 13th trap, also known as the fishing trap, but fishing pole trap, but the Spanish variation. So after the 13th trap, we have a trap in the Sicilian defense variation. So now let's check out the 14th trap, also known as the trap in the Sicilian defense variation. So after white starts with e4, we have c5, knight f3, d6, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6. So we have the Sicilian defense dragon variation, which many players like to play in the Sicilian. Black plays bishop e3, and after bishop e3, many players play knight g4. Idea is very simple. After knight g4, black is just going for simply eliminating the bishop on e3. Yep, because after just trading off the bishop for the knight, black is already better. But congratulations, the opponent has been already just set on your trap. So after this is what white wants. After knight g4, white is going to play bishop to b5 check. And if black is having options, he can play knight d7, bishop d7. If you try to play knight c6, knight into c6 is already winning because you cannot capture the knight. Because after bishop into c6, it's a check, the rook is jet, and you're winning the game. So there is no point putting the knight in between. And if you try to play bishop d7 or knight d7 to stop the check, let's check any move, bishop d7. Now I'm going to play queen into g4, simply capturing the knight. Bishop cannot capture the queen because the bishop is pinned. So after bishop into b5, knight into b5, white is the piece plus and it's winning position for white. And even if you try to play knight d7 in the position, I'm still going to capture the knight and it's still winning for white. So this was the 14th trap, a trap in the Sicilian defense variation. So now let's move to the 15th trap, also known as the second trap in the Sicilian defense variation. White starts with e4, c5, d4, cd, c3, and we have dc3. Knight c3, and we have d6 by black. So we have bishop to c4 by white, and after bishop c4, white is pawned out. But just look at the activity. White is simply activating the pieces. After bishop c4, black played knight to f6, developing the pieces. And after bishop c4, there are two natural moves which comes into the mind of the Sicilian players, all Sicilian players, which is knight c6 or knight f6. And knight f6 looks the most natural move because of two reasons. Because after knight f6, black idea is to play g6, bishop g7 and to castle very quickly. And the second idea here is, if black tries to play knight c6, there is no point. After knight f6, there is a point. Why black wants to castle fast, and even after playing knight f6, black is putting pressure on the pawn on e4. So after bishop c4, if black tries to play knight f6, white is going to push the pawn. After pushing the pawn, you are hitting the knight as well as the pawn. So definitely black will simply capture the pawn on e5. Congratulations, your opponent has been successfully trapped in your idea, because after d into e5, white is going to simply capture the pawn on f7 with a check. King is forced to capture the bishop and the queen is dead on d8. So this was the second trap in the Sicilian defense variation. So now let's move to the next trap. So I just forgot the counting. So you guys just tell me. So now let's move to the legal Scotch Gambit trap. So white starts with 1 e4. We have e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4. Black simply captures the pawn because it's the most obvious idea. White is having a very nice center, so black simply tries to destroy the center by playing e into d4. After e into d4, white is going to play bishop c4, simply developing the piece. And after bishop c4, it's already hard for black to continue the position. The most common move looks d6. Idea is very simple. Black wants to play bishop g4, pinning the knight. After d6, white is going to play c3. Sacrifice another pawn. Black captures it. We have knight into c3, bishop g4, pinning up the knight, and now we have castle by white. Black plays knight to e5. Very common idea. Knight cannot capture the knight because the queen is hanging on d1. And second, the knight on e5 is attacking the knight on f3 as well as the bishop on c4. So after knight e5, congratulations, the opponent has been set into your trap. Because what black have thought here is, white knight cannot capture because the queen is hanging. But actually, unfortunately, white have thought one move ahead by simply capturing the knight on e5. After knight into e5, black is having no choice. He has to capture the queen, because if he tries to capture the knight, I'm going to simply capture the bishop on g4 and I'm a piece plus. So bishop into d1 is forced, and now comes bishop into f7 check. Yes. King is forced to come in on e7, and after knight d5, boom, it's a checkmate. Black king is having no square to go, and now it's just an incredible queen sacrifice, and the game is completely over for black. It's a checkmate. So this was the legal Scotch Gambit trap. So now let's move to the next trap, which is also, there is a trap in the board opening trap. I'll just tell you. So in the board opening trap, white continues the game with one f4. And many players who tries to be smart, they tries to play f4. Yeah, because f4 is not a very common opening. Common opening is just like e4 and d4. But f4 is very uncommon move. And to destroy this board opening, you should, after f4, you should play e5. White will simply capture the pawn, and you play d6. You sacrifice another pawn. E into d6, bishop into d6, and you have knight f3. And you're going to play g5. And after g5, yeah, the idea is very simple. You want to push the pawn to g4. So all those players who will play from white side, if they try to play h3 in the position, try to stop g4, congratulations. Bishop g3 is checkmate. So at the place of h3, all those players who will try to play e4, trying to gain center, you are going to play g4. They are going to play e5. Yep, they are hitting their bishop. So they are also hitting the bishop, and you are also hitting the knight. So after e5, you are going to simply capture the knight. You have e into d6, and now comes queen h4 check. This is not what they expected. g3, queen e4 check, king to f4, f2 because it's the fourth move. You can't put the piece in between because pawn will simply capture it. So king f2, queen d4 check. It's a fourth move to capture the pawn on f3. If you try to play king to e1 in the position, it's a two movement. f2 check, king e2 is forced, and bishop g4 is game over. Checkmate. So that's why after queen e4 check, queen d4 check, white have to capture the pawn. But after bishop g4 check, and the queen is lost on d1, you have to play king g2 and bishop into d1, and it's game over. White resigns the game, and you will win the game. So this was a trap in the board opening, because if white start to play one f4, this opening name is the board opening trap. So that's why it's the board opening trap. So now let's move to the final trap, 16th trap, which is the TrickyMate trap. So white starts the game with 1d4. We have knight f6, c4, e5. We have d into e5, and we have knight to e4. We have the Budapest Gambit. Knight f3, g6, b6, and queen d5. And the idea of playing queen d5 for white here is, white is attacking the knight and the rook. So white is thinking, I just completely won the game. Black simply blundered. I'm going to win the game, because you can't protect both the pieces. So black is going to play an astonishing move, which is bishop to b7. He is going to attack the queen. So queen is like, you just gave me a free piece. So after queen into b7, white is going to play knight c6. And after knight c6, the idea of white is very simple. Black is very simple. Black wants to play a5, followed by rook a7, and the queen is dead. The queen is trapped. So tell me, after knight to c6, tell me the comment box, what will you play on the move number after playing knight c6 on the move number 7? What will you play for white in the position? I'll give you a couple of seconds, think and tell me. So all those who have thought queen is 6, yep, that's the most logical move. Yeah, because you want to just come up with the queen back, because you're already a piece plus. So, but this is actually what black wanted. After queen a6, black is going to play bishop b4 check. White will play bishop d2. You're going to play knight to c5, because white is having options. He can play knight c3, knight d2, knight bishop d2, anything. But it doesn't matter. Whatever white tries to play, you are still going to play knight c5. And after knight c5, queen b5, the only move for queen to survive. But here comes bishop into d2 check, knight into d2, and after a6, just tell me, where can white queen can go from the b5 square? It's trapped. There is no place for the queen to run away. And you are going to simply win the queen. You are going to win the game. So this was the 16th trap and the final trap. So I think after watching all the 16 trap, you will the video is just a bit long of 40 minutes, but I've just covered all the 18 traps. Yep, all the 18 traps. So yep, this was a fantastic video on the basis of 18 different kinds of traps. So I think that you have liked the video. If you have liked all these traps, then please like to the video. And if you are new to my channel, then please subscribe to my channel. Now my throat is actually paining after just speaking continuously for 40 minutes. So please share the video with your friends and all those have not who also want to just learn these types of traps. I'm going to come up with these more videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Chess Fight.